Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're on the KFN traditional lands. First item is the adoption of the agenda, and that we need a motion to amend to include subsection 91 1C for the provision of close the meeting under item 1.7. Is that me? Oh, okay. So do I have a mover?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Hang on.
All in favor? All right, carried. Thank you. And so we have Stefan from Winnipeg. Because I can't pronounce your last name. Stefan is here to discuss the Comox Valley United Soccer Club. And Stefan, please step up to the podium. To speak, you're going to have to press the mic and ensure that it's red, and then the folks online can hear you.
1 sec. Claude, Alex or Pat, can you guys say something to see if we can still hear you?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Can you hear Pat?
Yeah, we can hear you. We've got a delay echo of the mayor coming through on the sound, so we might just have to muddle through that for now.
Do you want us to exit out and come back in?
We might have it fixed now, so you should be good.
Mr. Mayor, esteemed members of the council, staff, thank you very much for having me today. I'm Stefan Schwartz. I'm the president of Comox Valley United Soccer Club. And as Russ mentioned, I am a Winnipegger, born and raised. So I'm here to brief on behalf of our club, which is a long-standing non-for-profit organization, the Comox Valley. We've been around for over 20 years. I'm here to brief you on a really exciting opportunity which we feel the town of Comox should support, which is an all-weather turf field or an indoor facility inside the town of Comox. So just a brief background. I'm going to give you some background about our club, followed by the turf field, a turf field and what would be used for, our usage, how and when we can get this done, and finally a conclusion and an ask. So like I said, we've been around for about 20 years. We're a not-for-profit organization, which we're very happy to call ourselves a cradle grave organization. So we normally have programs from age 4 to 55 plus. Club was formed in 1999 by way of a merger between two youth clubs and adult teams in the Comox Valley. Typically, we have approximately 1,200 members, but we sometimes spurt to 1,500. Majority of our club is actually aged U5 to U12. And then we get into the competitive ages after that. And we also have a competitive team in the Vancouver Island Soccer League, which I happen to coach. Of note for this council is that out of those 1,200 to 1,500 members, approximately 40% come from the town of Comox. So that's a significant number and disproportionate in your favor in terms of the valley itself. Furthermore, 70% come from the Comox Peninsula, which is the town, Area B, and East Courtney. We have a lack of facilities. This is a big problem for us. Currently, we only have one all-weather field. So when the time changes here in a couple of weeks, most of our players will only be able to get on the pitch once per week during the week for practice and once for games on the weekend. In a competitive environment, players should probably play 2 or 3 times a week, and that's what they normally do, but we don't have facilities for them to use. Normally, we would have more gym space, but of course, that's not an option with the school district and COVID, and all of this has been exacerbated because of the ongoing pandemic. The other piece to this is that normally we also have a great trouble in attaining fields in our high time, in our spring session. For some reason, we are often placed at the back of the line for fields, as happened last year in the town of Comox. We could only secure 2 fields. So for 1,200 players, it's not very much. We're really proud members of the community, and we feel we've contributed immensely to the local sports infrastructure. The clubhouse at Valley View being the centerpiece. Lights at the turf was the second piece of that. That's about a $200,000 investment. We contributed $400,000 of cash towards the Vanier turf field. We purchased soccer goals all over the valley. We are currently looking to build a field house and have a date for groundbreaking for that in April, which we're putting in about $300,000 of in-kind and cash investment, plus contributing to relaying the turf at an additional cost of $125,000. Finally, we used to have a plan to build 2 turf fields at the Valley View facility. We passed first reading at the Courtney Council. We ended up investing $40,000 into seismic testing at that location, but unfortunately, it was the rug was pulled from under us at the last minute, and here we are. So as many of you guys have seen at the RD level, we have 3 key infrastructure goals at present. The first one is to build a facility at Vanier Turf. We do not currently have change rooms or washrooms at the Vanier Turf, so that project is ongoing. The second one is to extend our agreement with the school district by contributing $125,000 to relay the turf at Vanier. Finally, and most germane to today, is to build an additional or multiple additional turf or indoor facilities in the Comox Valley, such that all of our children have a place to play for the foreseeable future. So why turf? Well, in British Columbia, the competitive playing season is across the winter, and as you know, we get a lot of rain. Grass fields, while great, and I prefer them, aren't necessarily very good for high volume use. As such, newest generation turf is the medium of choice for every single soccer club, from grassroots to high performance, all across British Columbia. It is very low cost to maintain, and the surface maintains a high level of quality. If you want to see, our current turf is several years old, I believe 7 years old, and it still looks brand new at Vanier. All you need to do to maintain it is there's specialized vacuuming machines that fluff up the artificial blades and get rid of excess pellets. Finally, why turf? Well, you can put a lot of users on it, specifically kids in the school district, other user groups, et cetera, et cetera. So, pertaining specifically to the town of Comox, we feel there are 3 good options for a facility. So, a couple years ago, we came to the rec center. There was a public consultation on use of space adjacent to the rec center. We sent a delegation, and we suggested that space be used for either an outdoor lit turf pitch or some sort of semi-permanent or permanent indoor facility with artificial turf inside of it. So that's option 1 and 2. The second option is to build a turf field at Highland School. Currently, I understand that there's a lot of public consternation with building lights, stadium lights in the high density areas. I live near Highland School. The beauty of that location is there are no houses in that area, and you could build probably 2 full pitches with stadium lights at that location, no questions asked. So what do we bring to the table? Well, we've got experience doing this, for one. We've partnered with other organizations and other constituencies to build high quality infrastructure in the past. Secondly, we have a proven track record of making it happen, and we're doing it again with the projects at Vanier. And finally, the will to do it. So we are growing. We are, we're a really exciting organization, I feel, that's forward thinking. All of our curriculum is very evidence-based and objective-minded. We're very inclusive, and we're very affordable for families. How are we going to do this? Well, same way we've done it in the past. We love to partner with others, and we can throw a lot of volunteers at a project. We've got a large contingent of high-quality, high-powered volunteers that are willing to help. When? As soon as we can, but knowing the COVID environment and expenditures probably are going to be light over the next few years, as soon as possible, or as soon as practicable. So in conclusion, we are an engaged and committed community organization who has committed a fair amount of money over the years. We estimate about $1 million to date, with another 300 to 400 coming in the near future. And what we would like to see from the town of Comox is a promise to work together to develop a concept for an all-weather facility, indoor or outdoor, at one of the 3 locations we think this should happen at. Secondly, gain commitment from the town to proceed once a viable concept is identified. And finally, if it's available, funding for this project. Thank you very much. Again, I'm Stefan Schwark, President of Comox Valley United Soccer Club. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. Councillor Swift.
Thanks, Stefan. Do you have, I have a couple of questions, but one of them is how much, what would be the cost of a field?
It's a really good question. It depends on how many fields you do at once. Typically, if you're doing a single field, it's about $1 million. And stadium lights are, it depends on the electrical situation, but it's generally around $200,000. If you build more than one at once, there's a scale of economy that can be found.
And just as a follow-up, are you eligible for any grants, and have you explored that avenue?
We have. The biggest one is BC Gaming Grant, and we probably qualify now. Basically, we're a bit of a victim of our own success over the last few years because we achieved some really rapid growth over the last 2 years. So we did not qualify. We probably could apply for a grant now. The criteria is to apply for a grant, your operating reserve needs to be about 2/3 of your operating revenue. So we're roughly about that now because of the loss of revenue over the last 6 months. We would like to approach other organizations as well, although knowing that we are in a difficult situation, places like Rotary and this sort of thing, they can't run fundraisers. We understand it may be difficult to go to those organizations.
Councillor Minions.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. I had similar questions to Councillor Swift, but to add on to that, what is the typical life of the turf field once built at, say, for 1.2 million? How long will that remain before it needs to be replaced fully?
So that's an excellent question. So at Vanier, we plan to replace the turf every 10 years. That's pretty jammy. If you go to Victoria, a lot of the turf fields are replaced never, and they can still play on them. So Gorge Soccer Club just replaced their turf, and the first time I played on it was probably 20 years ago. So it's at least a 15 to 20 year investment, or sorry, lifespan. Again, here we would have less volume than Victoria, so without replacement, it would probably last longer.
Councillor Grant.
Thanks. We always fight over the mics because haven't figured out how to use them yet. But I really like your organization because you guys actually put your money where your mouth is, and you actually do some fundraising and bring some cash to the table. So that's a really good, those are the kind of organizations that really show some spirit in what they're doing. What is your thoughts about? I've been approached by the field lacrosse people wanting to get on some of these turf fields too, and of course, you guys are using them all the time. Is there some partnerships and consistency there? And when you do replace the turf, is it the same cost of putting a new field in, or is it cheaper?
So in terms of replacement, it is cheaper because a lot of the I'm an aerospace engineer, not a civil engineer, but a lot of the cost goes into engineering and laying the groundwork literally for the field. So when you're replacing the turf, it's a matter of replacing the carpet portion. So the second piece, we are always open to partnering with other organizations. The issue that we tend to have, especially in the Comox Valley, is we come with a lot of money, and other organizations typically come out with their handout. So that makes it very difficult for us. Case in point, in the turf field, the field hockey organization put forth a small contribution, and they do get to use the field in our low months. But during the winter, they don't play in the winter. But during the winter, I mean, we have put forth a $600,000 investment into Vanier. So our position is that we should get priority during those periods.
So what you're saying, this isn't rocket science then?
No comment.
My question was, how deep would you have to go to firm up the ground to put the turf on there? Because as you know, beside the rec center is geothermal underneath there, and I'm not sure the depth of that, but just wondering how deep.
So my recommendation would be, no matter what option is pursued, that a full engineering assessment be conducted, because I'm not in a position to ascertain that.
CAO.
When you're looking at the options moving forward, are you hoping for the town to move forward and construct something that you guys would use? Or are you looking to construct something yourselves and with the town making a cash contribution?
So with our Vanier project, it is technically not our property. We've provided a contribution, and it was actually built in conjunction with the new hospital because we lost a field, and VHA provided funding for a new field for us. We happen to have money left over from the failed turf project at Valley View, so we provided that in kind, or that cash contribution. In terms of moving forward, I think it would be more beneficial for the town to own the property. And also, we're not currently in a position to build a turf field ourselves.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McKenna, then McGowan.
Hey, thanks for your presentation.
Your
super
Pat
awesome.
can't hear you.
Oh, weird. Go to someone else then.
We're just going to call you Bubbles up there. Councillor McGowan.
Hi. So with what I've heard about recent current issues on the field with destruction and vandalism and stuff, is there a way with this idea, is there kind of a security built in that would protect that kind of issue?
So what I've seen at other locations, especially in jurisdictions with high crime, is they would build a very large fence surrounding the field and gates that are locked, and that would preclude most people from causing issues. And even if somebody climbs a very high fence and there's signs that are prohibiting them from doing so, they're putting themselves at risk of injury and also to get caught, because you can't just escape easily.
Okay, Councillor McKenna, do you want to try again?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me now? I had to. Thanks for your presentation. Really great presentation. Have you talked to the school district about the Rodello property over the old Comox Elementary School?
I have not talked to them about that property, but I've spoken to them about other options. So in speaking to them, they want us to pursue, one of the options to pursue again is actually Valley View Marquisfeld. The issue, my consternation with that option is that, again, if you're going to put up lights, the thing that tripped us up the last time was local residents complaining about lights, even though the lights are off by 10. However, we're open to anything. Like we just want to partner, we want a location, and we want to move forward.
And so just a follow-up question. So your preference, I think, what I'm hearing is your preference would be Highland School, somewhere around there.
I actually don't have a preference. I want the most cost-effective option, which is going to afford us the most playable space as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And one final one for me, Stefan. When we talked about this before, you talked about having one of those inflatable dome type things. Is that still something that you would like to see?
Yeah, again, it's. I think we need to study the issue and come up with the best possible, most cost-effective solution. So the reason I went with the bubble is because knowing that the land adjacent to Comox Rec is a high-density area, the way that you get around the stadium lights suggestion is that you have a bubble. Yes, it's lit, but the lights aren't as aggressive for the local community. That being said, it's near a bunch of schools. I really don't think people are going to have that big of an issue with a fully accessible soccer pitch in their neighborhood.
All right. Any other questions from council? Councillor McKenna?
Just one more question, maybe to CAO. Is this a grant shovel ready type project that we could do in the future, like something that we could study to have ready to go?
Yeah, this would be, and there are a number of grants that are coming out occasionally that cover these type of projects. So this would be something that would be good for that.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I just want to say that I've already stood up a committee to investigate this project and other infrastructure projects in the valley. I'm that close to striking the committee. I have 3 members, and I'd be happy for them to work with the town to investigate this idea.
All right, thanks. Yeah, and we'll be talking about this maybe at a strategic planning meeting. Of course, we can't make any decisions tonight, but I like the idea, and anything to engage our youngsters in the community, I think is a good thing. So thank you very much for your presentation, Stefan.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We have adoption of the regular council meeting minutes of October 7th.
Move.
Any questions? All in favor? Okay, carried, thanks. And special council meeting minutes from October 14th for adoption.
Move.
All in favor? Okay, that's adopted, thank you. Council committee minutes and meetings from Wednesday, October 14th for receipt.
Move.
Questions? All in favor? That's received, thanks. We go on to the strategic priorities report. So that was the strategic priorities report be amended to include traffic calming measures and speed limits in town.
Move.
Questions on that? All in favor? Thanks. And at the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program grants, we have 3 items there. Number 1, the council supports an application from the Comox Valley Airport Commission to the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program for the construction of additional parking area at the Comox Valley Airport.
Move. Oh.
Second. And any questions on that? I understand there's been some movement today on that, perhaps, some discussion. And I just wanted to note too that our CAO has been very helpful with the Valley in helping move some of the economic things along. So all in favor of that? Great, thanks. And number 2, that council approves an application for the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program for the construction of a marine services building at the Comox Marina.
Move.
And further, that council authorizes funds from Town of Comox capital reserves for any cost coverages. So we'll move and second that one.
Second.
And all in favor? Okay, great, thanks. And that given the deadline of October 29th for submission, these projects be given priority for completion.
Move.
All in favor? Great, thanks. And back to more Economic Recovery Task Force recommendations. I have a few here. That the communication strategy be launched to highlight the work council and the town have undertaken to promote economic recovery in Comox, and that this project be added to the corporate strategic plan. And I'm just going to go through them all. The council authorizes myself to release a letter of support to the Comox Valley Airport, desires to see improvements on health standards and airport capital improvement fund, that the town of Comox support local culture events through promotion on social media. Council reports on the approval of patios for the spring of 2021, and that the volunteer promotion campaign be added to the recreation strategic plan.
That.
Okay, any questions on those?
Just for discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
When we say when requested by local nonprofit cultural societies, what would deem a cultural society?
Is that a philosophical or operational question?
Well, I'm just not sure how a cultural nonprofit is defined, to be honest. Like if Yana asked us to publicize something, are they deemed a cultural society, or is it like the social planning society? Like I'm having a hard time coming to grips with the definition of a cultural nonprofit.
I think we'd probably be fairly liberal in our interpretation. So what we'd be looking for are events being put on to entertain the public would be one way. If we're talking about information sections, I'm not sure that's really what we're talking about, but cultural events, whether it be plays, festivals, gatherings, music, any sort of those things.
Okay.
All right. Seeing no further questions, all in favor of that? And that's carried. Thank you. And number 2, that a communications plan highlighting the need for increased affordable daycare spaces be added to the corporate strategic plan. Questions? All in favor? Carried. Thanks. Number 4, planning services strategic priorities. That the strategic priorities as contained in the October 14 staff report to the strategic plan committee be approved. Any questions? All in favor? Okay, thank you. And under, yeah, go ahead.
So I sent this out to council in an email, and I just wanted to reiterate it, that we're moving forward based on this plan, and that there are a number of items here that I think some councillors may have been passionate about getting done and seeing completed within your term. We're going to be coming up into budgeting towards the end of this year, so it's going to be important in the near future if there's projects that are currently slated at the bottom that you'd like to bring up to the top, or you'd like to see costing done for to be included in next year's budget, please come and see me in the near future.
All right, so under committee recommendations, the Michael Day options for use of their underdeveloped portion of land on Aspen Road, that the October 6th town engaged in conversation. Yeah, so guess are we taking a mover in a second on this one? We did already.
Movers.
And I'll just state that the CAO and I met with the folks at the church on Tuesday and had some very good discussions about multiple uses on that land. So any questions on that?
Yep.
Councillor Bissinger?
Could we, I have a hard time picturing like the actual land, but would it be big enough for a turf? And if so, is that something that we could potentially bring up with the church?
Yeah, for right now, I think anything's on the table for them. From our discussion, it sounds like they want to move towards some type of housing model. And
Okay.
I'm thinking that would be first and foremost, but they're a very nice crowd, and they're literally putting everything out there. So they'll be discussing it amongst their congregation. I'm sure we'll have more discussions on that as well. We even talked about co-op housing. We talked about daycare. We talked about mixed use. Somewhere for families to rent with more than 2 bedrooms going up. So there's a really good discussion on that. All right, so all in favor of that? Carried, thanks. And now we're to the consent agenda. And this still confuses me sometimes, but I'm getting it.
Receipt of the items on the.
Okay, and there's a couple that I think we need to refer to staff. Okay, so all in favor of that? Okay, carried, thanks. So item C and D, I think we should, C, we should refer to staff. D, we've already made a response, you'll see. And G, I'm just looking for a little bit of input there from staff that I'm wondering if we should add KFN input on that. And, because there's been talk over the years about the multiple use pathway along the Dyke Road, and I think we should have KFN as part of that, if that's a discussion that you and that RD have. So, Councillor Bissinger, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to comment on G. So we do have a meeting with the Integrated Transport Regional Planning Committee on November 16th, and it is to discuss this MOU. And the KFN is well aware of everything that we had requested in terms of like that multi-path lane. So maybe after the 16th, I could provide a better update as to where it's at and what, whether or not it's going ahead or not, or what the roadblocks might be. And then just a quick question for D. I don't know if I can still talk about that one. But I know we're like partnering with Courtney to talk about chickens and urban homesteads. Is there any progress on that, like from planning or legislative departments?
We haven't touched base with them in a little while, so I'll make sure to reach out here in the near future and get back to you.
And then Councillor McKenna and then Millions.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, for pulling out C. Do we know if we have a plan on that section of Lazo and Knight Road in the near future? Like, is it part of our planning to have anything done there?
I'm not aware, but I see Councillor Grant's hand.
So some of those roads, we don't own, they're Ministry of Transport. So we have some pieces along Lazo Road, but I believe as you get up around Knight, you get into provincial roads. So it's a bit of a bigger issue than just that. I think we're looking, as we come down Lazo, from the corner of Lazo and Lazo, we're looking at doing that in the next short while till we get to Lazo Beach, where we have the walkway out or the trailway out. And after that, I think it starts to turn into Minister of Transportation.
Councillor Millions.
I just had a quick question on item F from Yves Bernard. Would he have a response as far as just knowing that we do have representation on that those two regional services I believe you mentioned? And I'm guessing that I believe we're responding to those letters. Yeah. Just because I don't think we have an answer on how we can affect it, but just giving process information there. Yeah. The gentleman I've talked to before in past, and so I just want to make sure he has a response and process.
So I talked to him for quite some time, and we went over, I can't remember the exact letter now, but we went over a lot of that, and he had a better, he didn't really have a good understanding, but he has a better understanding now.
Okay, I think that's it. So these were just discussion points, correct? We're not voting on any of these.
Unless there's something you want to vote about.
No. Okay, good. All right, so carry on. Unfinished business, strategic planning and action items from October 21st for
Move receipt.
Any questions? All in favor? Carried, thanks. And the new bylaw dispute adjudication program. That's we have let's see, three recommendations on there. That third reading of the Comox bylaw on notice enforcement number 1961 2020 be rescinded.
Move.
And all in favor? Carried, thanks. And that the Comox bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 1961 2020 be amended as highlighted in red in the October 21 regular council meeting agenda.
I've got a question.
Question, go ahead.
Yeah, I just kind of struggle with this one. Like I'm just wondering, like I understand the concept behind it, and I did some digging, and it seems like there's at least 100 municipalities in BC that have the same program. I guess I just want to make sure that we don't get into a situation where someone's getting, like where a resident's getting perhaps bullied or anything, like that there is still like a second process available for, if they think something is unfair, they can still take it the legal way, I guess, if that makes any sense. Just because I've been trying to like read up on it and see what all the information is. And I just want to make sure that we're not, just being biased, or not necessarily biased, but just making sure that there's other ways to handle disputes that way as well, once you get a bylaw notice.
Yeah, thank you. This actually provides more and cheaper options for people to be able to dispute their tickets. So there for some offenses, you have the ability to meet with somebody from the staff. That's the screening officer, to see if compliance agreements, which will allow you to decrease or even eliminate the penalty that gets paid. So that would be one step, and that is done internally. And then you also have the ability, if you're not satisfied at that point, to go to the adjudication. The adjudicators are appointed by the province, and so they're a completely neutral party that would be making a decision on it. And so the ability for a resident of the town to dispute a bylaw infraction would be faster and cheaper for them under this system than it would under the MTI. Under the MTI, if they wanted to dispute it, they'd have to get their time in court. I think there's a court filing fee, although I may be wrong about that. And, I always say going to court is like waiting for TELUS. They give you a time from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and you're there all day. The adjudication system is, they'll set a specific time in which you meet so you can go and leave. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. This is a better system. If you want to go through and dispute something, I believe this would be a better, cheaper and faster system for the residents, as well as being better, cheaper and faster for the town as well.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McGowan.
Hi, thanks. I just had a couple of questions when I was going through the bylaws. So I know it's probably a little out, but what constitutes unsightly or unlawfully unsightly? Like, what's the difference there, and what are the parameters on those kind of things?
Yeah, that really gets into a fine line of, in the eye of the beholder. So ultimately, it would come down to the decision of the adjudicator. So when we have unsightly premises, we take the evidence and photos and we would make the argument for why it's unsightly or why it's not. There are specific regulations in some bylaws. The length of vegetation, like there can be unsightly premises because your grass has grown too long, and that can be a specific infraction. Otherwise, it can be just being things that are unkempt, broken down vehicles in yards and stuff like that as well. So we try not to become the ping pong between disputing neighbors, and we're very aware that when we receive bylaw complaints beget more bylaw complaints, because the person who is the recipient of a bylaw complaint usually looks around and tries to find something. It's very likely that we are all in violation of some bylaw or another, and we understand that when we're going through, we only try and enforce things when we take a look at it and say, no, this is causing a nuisance to neighbors. So we're not, a gated community where everything needs to be kept prim and proper, but at the same time, we do want to make sure our town is presentable.
Thank you. That was kind of led into my next question, which you kind of answered. So, and that was just, making sure that in our community, those who may be struggling and have been unable to, take care of their lawn or whatever, are also looked after, and they're not penalized for being poor or something like that. That's all. So I'm glad to hear that there's a medium thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a job for your kid. Send them out $25, cut the lawn. Go ahead, CEO.
I just wanted to highlight that specific case. This new bylaw adjudication system is much better suited to handle. If we were to go out and give an MTI, the only recourse they would have would be to come back to the bylaw officer and try and get them to remove it. Whereas with this new one, they could go to a screening officer and they could say that, listen, it's not that I didn't want to, it's my lawnmower broke down, I don't have the money to be able to do it. And the compliance agreement can be, okay, that's fine, we're going to waive it. Just make sure you find somebody to cut your grass in the next 2 weeks, and that goes away. So this provides the ability to do a little bit more flexible in that exact type of situation.
Okay, seeing no further questions, all in favor of number 2? So that's carried. Thanks. Number 3, that the Comox bylaw and notice enforcement be given third reading as amended.
Move.
Any questions on that? All in favor? Carried. Thanks. Number 4, that council policy CCL 057 as included in the October 21 regular council meeting agenda be approved.
Move.
Questions on that? All in favor? Thank you. Number 5, the council requests that the Ministry of Attorney General add the town of Comox to the bylaw notice enforcement regulation to allow for the town to practice bylaw adjudication under the local government bylaw notice enforcement act. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Maybe I'll call the horse races or something. We're under bylaw adoptions. Comox permissive tax exemption bylaw number 1964-2020 be adopted.
Second.
And questions? Councillor Swift.
Thank you. This question is probably for Clive. Could you just clarify the situation at the hospital? Thank you.
The hospital is still under the Hospital Act. Even though it's not running as a hospital, it's still considered under the Hospital Act. So if they are operating until they come out of the Hospital Act, we're just continuing in this form of permissive tax exemptions. It's designed for nonprofits that are providing that community service to all that get the permissive tax exemptions. So the trigger for me is waiting to see them come outside of the Hospital Act and then have a discussion again about the old St. Joseph's property. So as far as I'm being advised from BC Assessment Authority, is just stay the course, leave it as it is. They do have some businesses in there and they will be taxed. That's the tutoring school, and there's a second business, sorry, escapes me right at the moment, but they get taxed. And then there's a statutory exemption, and we're exempting the rest of the area for what was the hospital. I wouldn't actually have much grounds to change it anyways until they come and are regulated by a different act. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thanks. And under new business, the building bylaw amendment to add MTI provision for failure to comply with stop work order. We have 3 recommendations.
First read.
Any questions? All in favor? Carried, thanks. Number 2.
Move second.
There is, okay, any questions? All in favor? Okay, and number 3.
Move third.
Any questions on that? All in favor? Okay, thanks, Gary. We don't have anything else here, but we do have reports from members of council. So we'll go with Councillor Minions, please.
Outside of one community member meeting, I did not have any other meetings.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Grant.
Yeah, I attended the 2-day workshop on economic development last week, and we'll talk about that later.
Okay, Councillor McGowan.
I attended Food Policy Council, the social planning AGM, which unfortunately found out the North Island College Housing Project is probably put off until about 2023 due to current situations, which was sad. I attended the Walk With Me, Alley Walk with the Drug Strategy Committee, and I highly recommend everybody go to at least one of those. Attended the STAIR board meeting, still working on getting things opening, and Person's Day lunch.
Great, thanks, Councillor Swift.
My report's the same as Councillor Grant's. I attended the 2-day session for economic development.
Thanks, Councillor Bitt.
I attended the Person's Day lunch last Friday as a panelist, and then I was on vacation last week, so my apologies for missing the meeting.
Nice, thanks. And Councillor McKenna.
Yeah, so I attended the Community Justice Center board meeting last week, and they're preparing for the Iona Campanola lecture series for the spring, and even starting to look into 2022 for who they will have for a lecturer. Like Councillor McGowan, I attended the Social Planning Society AGM, and I also had just an individual conversation with a citizen who is up at Cladaga Estates who will be bringing forward a motion or a presentation to through our planning departments for in that area.
Great, thanks. And has the Justice Institute determined who's going to be the fall speaker this year, Pat?
Yeah, so it's going to be in the spring, and her name escapes me right now. Dynamic young Indigenous artist, singer, songwriter, and kind of a dramatist. But I'll have to go back into my notes.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Okay, for myself, yes, I did have a CVED's board meeting and then the 2-day strat planning meeting with Councillors Grant and Swift. I had a BIA meeting, and at that they did say, and I mentioned it all to you, that there won't be the downtown Halloween as they've had before. That'll be unfortunate, but due to COVID, it's understandable. With the CAO, I attended the Presbyterian Church and talked about their land development in that area. And again, it looks quite promising. Good group of people who are trying to work with the community and provide some type of services, whether that be housing or maybe a soccer pitch, who knows. I met with the marina owner, Mr. Neville, today, talked about some possible land uses of his area. And I too have been in discussion with members in the Cladaw Estates area. And that is it for me. And so we'll now move to go in camera, exclude the public pursuant to following subsections 90 of the community charter. All right, all in favor?